Welcome to Undisputed. We're live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you today?
Good. Well,
So, I'll be just fine today if we don't have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Is that okay?
it's not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay?
I don't think we're going to
Why
be able
not?
to not do it.
How about that's the new rule? No more Cowboy talk.
You got
You
2 more
insist.
weeks.
2 more weeks.
Yeah, because after they go 0-2 these next 2 games, it's a wrap.
Well, how about 0-5 the next 5 games?
No. I
That
don't
would
want
make me
I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen.
Why not?
Because you'd be on suicide watch.
No, I would not, because that would be the end of the coach. That's just me. Thank
He
you.
ain't going nowhere.
Yes,
He
yes.
ain't going. He ain't going. Stop
in
it.
someplace.
No, he's not.
Home.
No, stay there, Jason.
Yep.
We got a lot to get to on today's show. Like, if Shannon is worried about another Lakers loss tonight, and Skip's old friend Dez, is he going to be a game changer for the Saints? We also have former Browns coach Hugh Jackson live in studio. That should be interesting. And Skip, if it's okay, we are going to start with what's going on.
It's your call, Jenny.
In Dallas.
You run this show, so
I do my
take it
best.
over.
The Cowboys are a disappointing 3-5 after their loss to the Titans. They continue to struggle on offense despite adding Amari Cooper. Dak Prescott had 2 big turnovers on Monday night. Jerry Jones even had to say that he would not fire Jason Garrett in the middle of the season. Yesterday, Cowboys legend Troy Aikman said there needs to be a, quote, complete overhaul of the entire organization. Aikman took it a step further when he broke down the problems in Dallas. Let's take a listen.
I've heard Jerry say, okay, look, we're going to do it differently. I'm going to do it differently. But it's the same. Nothing changes. And that, to me, is the bigger issue. Yes, coaching is important, personnel, all those things are important. But how are you going about evaluating? How are you going about running the organization? And whatever that looks like, and everyone has an opinion on what it does look like, but I'm not in the building. I have no idea. You know, I talk to people who have been inside the building and have a pretty good understanding of how things are run. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of dysfunction, and that has to change if this team is going to be able to compete on a consistent basis like the teams that you look to around the league that seemingly are in the hunt each and every year.
All right, Shannon, do you agree with Troy?
I absolutely agree with Troy, and this is a scathing criticism coming from. I don't know if any quarterback position is more revered than the Dallas Cowboy quarterback position that's won a Super Bowl.
I agree.
Roger Staubach is revered because he brought championships. Troy Aikman brought championships. So they add credibility. Now, what sets Troy apart is that normally what we see from a lot of players that played from a team, especially prominent players, is that they're not as forthcoming when it comes to scathing criticism.
I agree. And may I jump in real quick? I know Roger Staubach very well. There is no way he would have said what Troy said yesterday. That was gutsy on Troy's part because Troy lives right there in Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And so for him to say that, and he says, no, I'm not in the building, but I've talked to people inside that building and it's dysfunction. You know, Skip, for the longest, for Jerry had a comment, I think it was like a month ago, Skip. He said that there's not anything he wouldn't do financially. He would write a check so big it would be obscene.
He did.
But you notice what he said, Skip. Financially, he would do anything. Okay, Jerry, let me make this to you. Jerry, you have to step into the background. And all those interviews that you be giving about who's going to do this, who's going to do that, you couldn't do that. Would you be willing to do that? I don't think so. Because the guys that could have, if you look at in Jerry's tenure, the guys that could have delivered, that did deliver him a championship, and who could have, Coach Parcells and Jimmy Johnson. And see, Jerry didn't get the credit that he wanted, Skip, because even though Barry Switzer won it in 95, they say you did it with Jimmy's player. So now he wants to go it alone. See, Jerry is the only owner in all the sports. He's more popular than their most popular player and the head coach. See, what he is an old school George Steinbrenner. He's the new version of Al Davis. Al was always more popular than any coach that he had, any player that he had. And do we need to say anything about Mr. Steinbrenner, Skip? That goes without saying. He was the Yankee. He was the pinstripe. And this is what Jerry is, and this is what Jerry wants. It is, Skip. The one thing that's the common denominator, the one thing that's been constant through all of this in the tenure, they've had different head coaches. They've had different quarterbacks. But the one common denominator is Jerry. If Jerry cared about just winning championships and not receiving credit like Mr. Kraft or the Rooneys did, he'd have never fired Jimmy. Because Mr. Kraft could have easily fired once a Spygate came out. He could have easily got rid of Coach Belichick. Deflategate happened on his watch. He could have easily got rid of him. He's like, no. I love stacking these Lombardis, and it's not about me. I'm perfectly fine. Let Tom Brady be more popular than me. Let Coach Belichick be more popular than me. But that's not what Jerry wants. Jerry wants the credit. And you would think, Skip, like you say all the time, he's won 3 Super Bowls. He's the owner. He has a gold jacket. What else could he do? He can win a Super Bowl doing it his way, get all the credit, and then I think he might fade to the background. But until that happens, he's not going anywhere, Skip. And Troy Aikman is absolutely correct. It's organizational. He ain't talking about the coach. He ain't talking about the players. He ain't talking about the coaches. He's talking about that top picking over the CEO, the VP, the GM. And that falls at the feet of Jerry Jones.
By the way, quick point on Jimmy Johnson and the firing of said Jimmy Johnson. That wasn't just about vying for credit, though that was a big part of it. But I've told you before, because I wrote a whole book about this, that was in largest part about Jimmy constantly shaming and insulting and ridiculing Jerry Jones in front of the other coaches and front office staffers. And after a while, no one will take it. And Jerry finally said, I'm still the owner, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
And why was Jimmy constantly doing that? Because Jerry was constantly trying to get credit. He was constantly.
True. I'll give you that. And plus, Jimmy could not stand it that he had paid his dues coming all the way up from high school coaching ranks in Mississippi, Picayune, Mississippi, all the way up through Oklahoma State and Pitt and Miami and all the way up. And Jerry went and struck it rich in the oil fields and bought the Dallas Cowboys and named himself the general manager. And Jimmy just could never quite get comfortable with that. Right. And I don't blame him for that because it's hard when you pay your dues and the other guy paid none, right?
He just paid for the team.
And what did Jerry Jones do right away? He invited Al Davis and the Raiders to come to Austin, Texas for a couple of early camps where they practiced against each other so that he could take Al to dinner and pick his brain because that was his idol, Al Davis. He wanted to be the next Al Davis, and to your point, he is Al Davis.
He is.
And what did the number one thing Al taught him, according to what Jerry told me, was you learn to coach the coach. That's how you do it. If you're the GM owner, you coach the coach. And he still wants to coach the coach.
Right.
So, again, I loved what Troy said. I love the guts of it, the courage of it. But the bottom line is he's basically saying that Jerry needs to fire Jerry. And I don't think Jerry's ever going to fire Jerry.
No.
Okay, so that's the root of the problem lies right there. Would Jerry ever take a step into the shadows, into the background? I'm going to doubt it, but maybe a little bit. But again, for me, it has to start with the coach. And that's where I digress from Troy. That's where we part ways is he's saying that it's not about the coach. It's about the dysfunction of the structure of the organization. Well, again, Will McClay has been running the drafts. Is he a problem? Is he drafting bad players? No, he's not. Seriously, he took over in 2014. And if I give you 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 drafts, they're pretty to very good. Right. Seriously, he starts off with Zach Martin and DeMarcus Lawrence. That's pretty good in 2014. 2015 is Byron Jones and Randy Gregory. I'll say okay. 2016 is Zeke, Jalen Smith, and Dak. I don't know. It's pretty good. 2017 is Taco and Awuzie and Jordan Lewis. Not bad. And Xavier Woods, a starter. I didn't like Leighton Vander Esch, and he's growing on me. And I don't know, Michael Gallup, we can go on. But these are pretty good players, like they're starting to get stocked with good young players, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's not the problem. Is the general manager the problem, or is it just the coach? Well, to me, Jason Garrett has just worn out his welcome. And I know he's like a son to Jerry Jones, but seriously, does anybody in the locker room fear Jason Garrett? Does anybody listen to Jason Garrett in the locker room? Is anybody inspired by him in the locker room?
Why would I listen to him, Skip? When I can go to Jerry?
Well, again, you just tune him out because you feel like he's just an extension of the owner, but he's a vanilla milquetoast extension of the owner. He's the opposite of the owner because he's got nothing. I like Jason, but he's got no real pizzazz, aura, personality. There's no fear factor in the locker room of losing your job or having the wrath of Jason brought down on your head, right? I think Mike Shanahan, I'm kind of afraid of him from a distance a little bit. Like he's kind of scary. Dan Reeves, I was afraid of Dan Reeves.
Yeah, but Skip,